Nice try, Jessica, but, it says 10 o'clock on my computer, and that's exactly when I'm supposed to come on, so... Anyways. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're on, or in. It is your host, True Horror Stories, and we are back to cover the 90s and the 80s of horror film, which is probably the eras that I am most familiar with. And I'm pretty excited to do that. This is going to be a lot. We've got 50 plus movies to go over. Some I don't know very much about, or just I'm going to roll my eyes at, so I may not cover them very much, but I'll at least try to do some justice to these. Oh, lordy, today's going to be long. I can already feel it in my brains, but last time we closed out the 1970s when we had Nox on, and now we're going to be getting into the 80s, which is most known for slasher films and the slasher genre, and going into the 90s, which is more a supernatural, kind of religious, spinny horror phenomena time period. But why don't we just go ahead and dive right into the 80s here and talk about Prom Night, made in 1980 by Paul Lynch. Now, this one has Jamie Lee Curtis in it. Obviously, one of the biggest scream queens of all time, period, like we talked about last time with Nox, because of, you guessed it, Halloween. Hey Tails, hey Wild Artists. Oh, and before I forget, Rock and Ruin did drop a $5 super chat to say ew woo. So there you go, Rock and Ruin. I don't know if you're gonna come back or not, but there is your ooh woo for the stream. But Prom Night uses a formula that is used quite often in the next 20 some odd years of horror film, and I think they've used it before in later years, like in current 2000s, 2010s, early 2020s, but I can't think of anything right now. But I think this is where one of the earliest iterations of this kind of storyline, where you have the four main characters are involved with this horrific masked killer that runs around destroying other people's lives because they were involved in the accidental death of a 10-year-old classmate when they were in school. Now, what basically happens is, during that time period, they were bullying a 10-year-old girl, and she ends up falling to her death because she just gets so scared and tries to get away from him, and obviously that's what happens. That group tries to hide what had happened and just claim it's an accident, but what they don't know is that somebody else had seen it happen. And that's where the killings start. Hey Oracle, how you doing, my friend? But that's where that movie is, and 6 years after this particular accident, not really an accident, I would kind of say it's murder, but after that particular incident, the serial killer just goes after him and tries to take revenge, or avenge the person that died. I'm not going to give away what the ending is, but I'm sure some people have already seen this movie in one iteration or another, whether it's the original from 1980 or the remake that they did in 2008 that has absolutely nothing to fucking do with the first Prom Night. It's almost not even the same story. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but hello, welcome. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm assuming that's maybe Russian. I don't know for sure. I apologize. I'm a dumb blonde American. Yeah, I'll go with that. This movie had 3 sequels, all of them degrading in quality, but the original Prom Night, from what I understand, is actually pretty good. The remake, not so much. Now that we've gone over that one, we've got one of my favorite horror movies from the 80s, and that would be The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. This is a fantastic film, and it's probably my favorite Jack Nicholson performance of all time. Welcome back, Nerdy John, and hi, party. Yeah, I've heard that the Prom Night remake is really, really bad. In all honesty, I heard it's extremely, extremely bad. But what can you do? That's what happens with most remakes, unfortunately. But in The Shining, you basically have a family that is enlisted to watch over a hotel that's apparently haunted. And while they are snowed in and can't leave because of a blizzard, some really strange shit starts happening. This is where the phrase red rum comes from. This is where the twins that you see in those pastel dresses with their little hair and a tiny little ponytail to the side comes from. This is where you see that old lady tricking you into coming into her bathroom by pretending and making herself look like she's a younger, more attractive woman. Oh, man. It's just one of those fantastic films that builds up tension in a way that makes you extremely terrified for what's going to happen next. It's so well done. Even though apparently Stephen King hated this movie. And this is not... He didn't like this at all, from what I understand. I love it. Don't worry, it's fine. Yes, it's Russian. It's Peter. For sure, you're not stupid. Oh, thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. I'll try to put that in my noggin and remember the name. But it's also purported that in this particular filming of the movie, Stanley Kubrick really traumatized Shelley Duvall, who is the mother and wife of Jack Nicholson's character in this movie. He terrorized the ever-living shit out of her to get the reactions that we see on camera. And granted, these movies, in this particular movie, is really good, and these reactions are phenomenal. The amount of shit that these people had to go through to get that kind of reaction is insanity, and I feel so bad for her. Stephen King hates everything that isn't his. Yeah. Stanley went through a lot of film during the production of the movie as well. Yeah, that's what I understood. He took so many takes with a lot of these that it was ridiculous. The Shining had a very recent sequel called Doctor Sleep with Ewan McGregor. I haven't seen it yet. I would love to see that came out in 2019. And apparently there's a spin-off series called Overlook that's in development for HBO Max. This was announced in April 2020. Obviously, coronavirus puts things to the side a lot, and this is still in production as far as I'm aware. So, interesting. I want to go see Dr. Sleep, and I'm interested to see what happens with this Overlook series. Hey, what's up, Renegator? I don't get why The Thing was so hated, lol. It was the best movie. It's an amazing movie. I'm gonna have to... That's one that wasn't on the list, oddly enough, so... The Thing, let me pull that up. 1982, so... I'll talk about that at some point in here. 1982, I'll throw that after... Poltergeist. So... Put that right there. That wasn't one that I had on the list, weirdly enough, so... Now that's added. Thank you for reminding me of that one, Renegator. That one had slipped my mind, oddly enough. The next one that came out in 1980 that's probably one of the most well-known slasher franchises of all time is Friday the 13th with Jason Voorhees. Even though this first installment with Sean S. Cunningham as the director didn't have Jason as the bad guy, or as the villain. It was actually his mother. If you haven't seen this already, you need to go see it. I'm gonna spoil the shit out of it. Sorry, not sorry. But the mother is actually the villain of this particular movie and the identity of the killer. This is on the premise of a fictional camp called Camp Crystal Lake, where a kid named Jason Voorhees drowns in the lake. And because of this, the mother goes kind of nuts and decides, I'm gonna take revenge on these horny teenagers that are running the camp. This is also part of that trope that if you have sex, you will die because you're a sinner. Okay. Whatever. I think it's kind of dumb, but hey, what can you do? The Thing is a really good horror movie. It's one of the reasons why I have a clip of it as, Actually, before I get into that, I don't think I've shown everybody all the, I might as well go through when they come up and show my little my little donations stuff. But I do have a donation specifically for Shining. So let's play that one really quick. This is my favorite period part of this movie. There we go.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brain.
That's my favorite little line. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. It's a great line. Such a good movie. We'll go over Nightmare on Elm Street and Child's Play later. There's a lot of slashers that we'll be going through, period, in this pretty much. But Friday the 13th is probably one of the more well-known ones. Hey, Devin, welcome. Good to see you. I enjoy the Friday the 13th movies. I've only seen a few of them, but there are so many of them anyways that there's no way I could get to all of them in a certain particular amount of time. But, where was I at? I was talking about the plot of the movie, but, Mother takes revenge on these horny teenagers, and Mother ends up dead, which means that there are sequels. Well, this particular one has 10 sequels. 10. Jason doesn't actually become the bad guy until part 2, and the hockey mask isn't even introduced until part 3, so the hockey mask was initially a brown bag over Jason Voorhees' head with a hole in the eye cut out. There have been so many different Jason Voorhees actors that it's freaking ridiculous, and he even had the really hysterical crossover with Freddy later on. I think it was in the 2000s, but Friday the 13th is probably one of the best slasher franchises, even if it is really bad later on. Hey, what's up, Eric Dunchamp? How you doing, my friend? But good series, great first outing. Although I do think part 2 is a little bit better in my opinion. Has one of the best ending scenes of Jason jumping out of the water and grabbing the final girl to pull her in the water. So she doesn't actually survive. Interestingly enough. The next movie is basically kind of one of the 2 most influential werewolf movies of all time, and that's An American Werewolf in London. I would say that there's the question of influence because it and The Howling, which came out the same year, are debated as being like they debate, or they cause a debate of what is the best werewolf transformation of all time. Hey, Oracle. Or, no, not Oracle, I'm sorry. Revcast. Well, hi to Oracle, too, but I've already said hi to him. Welcome, Revcast. Glad you could drop by and say hello. But I would say, in my opinion, An American Werewolf in London is the best werewolf transformation of all time, period. It is so creepy, and the sound of his body, his like joints and bones cracking to transform into the wolf-like appearance, and his skin stretching is just disgusting, and just puts shivers through my back. My spine, it just tingles everywhere. It creeps me out. But this movie is also considered a comedy, which is interesting. But this basically is a story of two backpackers, American backpackers, that are in London, and they're attacked by a werewolf. One of them survives and becomes one, and the other, unfortunately, dies. But is a part of the movie still, because he comes back as an increasingly decrepit zombie. You initially see him again after the death, with him just looking like he did just after he died, and then he progressively just gets grosser and more disgusting looking over time. Devin says it was the first of its kind and showed the transformations I think MJ used in his music vid. Yeah. At least one person didn't butcher my name today. I'm sorry. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet. I've barely been awake for like an hour and a half, maybe. My bad. I'm a terrible person, I know. But you basically see the living backpacker trying to come to terms with what happened. It's kind of survivor's syndrome. If you're not aware of what survivor's syndrome is that it basically is you feel terrible because you survived something other people did not. Like, a lot of people who have survivor syndrome are veterans. My husband has it. But, it's not something that's fun to deal with, but it is a real medical problem, and it's a real thing that hurts people, and I'm glad that there is some representation of that in movies and the showing of people being able to get over that. There actually was a sequel in 1997 that was produced and distributed by Disney, weirdly enough, called An American Werewolf in Paris. And what I'm hearing is that there's a reboot being thrown around in Hollywood. There's no definitive answer on who's going to take it on or anything, but okay. The next film I'm going to talk about is The Beyond, or L'Aldila. It's an Italian movie that was directed by Lucio Fulci. It's actually a sequel to another movie a year prior called City of the Living Dead, and is the second of a trilogy, with the next movie being The House by the Cemetery in 1981. Yeah, I didn't know that either until I looked it up, but apparently Disney produced and distributed that one. I know for sure they distributed it, but I would assume that means that they did produce it too, but I'm not totally sure on that one. One of the best horror movie directors, yes he is. Very much so. Italian horror is one of the big things in the 80s, but Japanese films are huge towards the end of the 90s and then into the early 2000s. Hey Desplanes, welcome. We also find in this movie, it's kind of interesting, because it was actually filmed in Louisiana, in New Orleans, but This movie is basically about a woman who inherits a Louisiana hotel that she finds out through weird and happenings in this movie that it's actually a gateway to hell. Zombies, monsters galore in this movie. It's really, from what I understand, really cool, but I haven't seen it. There's a lot of these movies that I haven't seen it. Yes, there is an unsettling movie called Cannibal Holocaust. I'm not going to be talking about that in this. I already talked about the predecessor to that last stream on this. I'm not really a big fan of Cannibal Holocaust, nor am I really a big fan of exploitative films in general. The next movie we'll talk about is My Bloody Valentine, that's directed by George Mihalka. Or George Mihalka. I don't know how you want to pronounce that. And this one, it was actually kind of one of the jettison movies for the really weird craze that came in the 80s of taking holidays and turning them into horror movies. Yeah. Okay. But this one is particularly a psychopathic miner goes on a fucking killing spree and starts attacking and killing people with an axe. It's good in that it's kind of different, but it's not one of my favorites when it comes to, you know, a slasher film. But apparently it was good enough to make a 3D version of it in 2009 as a remake. Okay. I'm gonna kind of glide over that one because I don't care too much about it. I care more about the movie we're gonna talk about now in the series that came along with it. And that's Sam Raimi's Evil Dead. Oh my god. I love Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2, which I'll talk about later, is my favorite horror movie of all time, period. It is just so fucking great, and it's so fucking funny. I love Bruce Campbell. I love the fact that this particular movie, just the first Evil Dead, is done completely independently. Sam Raimi and a group of friends, which included Bruce Campbell, just decided they were gonna go do a freaking horror movie. And it's hysterical. This is where I have to play one of my favorite lines from Evil Dead 1 and 2, and that's... I have to play this. I have to. Great movie, and that scene is just creepy. I like the obviously Cinemasker. Fuck, what's it called? Maniacal Cinephile. The Maniacal Cinephile's version of that scene and that line. I also like that he makes a riff on it, goes, we're gonna get you, na pee pee. That makes me giggle every time I watch that review, and I've watched it many, many times. But this movie is just so good in the fact that it combines an interesting story of these campers going into the woods and finding the Necronomicon, and through sheer stupidity of reading it and listening to the tapes they find in this cabin that they're staying at, that they've summoned demons from hell. It's so fucking great. I love it to death. And I've watched this movie I don't know how many times. The second one, and more so than the first. The second one, I would say, is arguably better than the first. And then we have Army of Darkness after that, which is just as good, in my opinion. Not the best of the three, but you know what I mean. After that is The Howling, which I mentioned before, by Joe Dante. And this movie is basically an a news anchor, a female news anchor, is stalked and attacked by a serial murder. And when he gets her to go to a movie theater to watch a really gross, exploitative, like, film, I was just gonna say exploitative, he apparently gets shot by police officers, and when she thinks he's dead, he comes back as a fucking werewolf and attacks her. Psychotic. Yeah, see, I like the Howling, the first one anyway. Yeah, the Howling got, like a lot of the other movies, got really fucking weird. And, let me see, is he in it? I don't think so. I don't think he's, no, I don't see him in the list of the cast. He's not in this movie, Oracle. I think you just have Christopher Lee on the brain. But it's a good movie. It really is. But I would think that the transformation scene in An American Werewolf in London is better than the one that's in here. That's my opinion. There's a lot of other people who think differently, and that's totally okay. Apparently this was good enough to make 7 sequels. Again, declining in quality over each one. And then there's a comic book series, apparently, The Howling: Revenge of the Queen Werewolf, that started in 2017 by Space Goat Productions. What else is interesting is apparently there's a remake in the works with Netflix that was announced in 2020. Okay, didn't know that one. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. The next one is Cat People. 1982 by Paul Schrader. Do I have to go over this one? I did a movie review on this. I did a movie review on this movie, and I absolutely despised it. Even if the David Bowie song that he made for this particular movie is fantastic, it's the only fantastic thing about it. The only fantastic thing about it, and that's as far as I'm going to go with this movie, because I swear to God, if I have to talk about it anymore, I'm going to lose my mind. Next movie is Poltergeist. And this is the one that was brought up last stream by Nox as the most fucking cursed movie of all time. I'm gonna agree with that one with after me going and looking into exactly everything that happened with this movie. I'll breeze over those incidents a little bit, but this movie was based off of a family uncovering a Native American burial ground under their house. It's a great movie. It's fucking creepy. Let's... see, I picked out some pretty good scenes to put it as donation alerts, and that's probably one of my favorites. She creeps the fuck out of me. She's so good. But once this family uncovers the burial ground, a lot of creepy shit happens. Like her talking to the TV, being sucked into the TV. A whole myriad of really fucky creepy shit happens with this. Before I go over the stuff that happened, the Poltergeist curse, I'm gonna just quickly glance over a couple of things. There were 2 sequels to the original Poltergeist. It was remade in 2015, and apparently there's another remake being made by the Russo brothers as of 2019. Now, apparently there are 4 cast members that died during and soon after the filming of this series. The first is Heather O'Rourke. She died, she was 6 years old when she did the first Poltergeist film, the girl in the scene. And she was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 1987. Unfortunately, she would fall ill after that, or the following year, and started having flu-like symptoms. And once she started having these problems, she collapsed and suffered cardiac arrest. She was airlifted to the Children's Hospital in San Diego, but unfortunately she died during the operation to correct the bowel obstruction. Unfortunately, it's believed she was suffering a congenital intestinal abnormality. That's the first death. The second one is Dominique Dunn, who was the older sister for Dana Freeling in the series. And unfortunately, in 1982, she was murdered by her ex-partner after wanting to leave him. Very sad, and that's I can't imagine, because unfortunately with a lot of these kinds of murders, it's tied to somebody that the victim cares about, and that's always the worst thing to read and to see. The last two people who died were Julian Beck and Will Sampson. These are not as unpredictable or mysterious. The evil preacher came from Poltergeist 2, Julian Beck. Fantastic man. But unfortunately, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 1983. And once he finished working on Poltergeist 2, he took his own life. Will Sampson, who was the Native American shaman, died after going a heart-lung transplant, which unfortunately has a very slim survival rate. Other weird things that happened was that JoBeth Williams, who was the mother in this movie, apparently said that Spielberg insisted on using human skulls or human skeletons as props to save money, because they were apparently cheaper than plastic skeletons at the time. Creepy. Never been verified, but still creepy. The other thing that was kind of creepy that happened was that Samson, a real-life medicine man that passed away earlier, apparently performed an actual exorcism after shooting wrapped up one night. Or literally performed an exorcism afterwards. I can't imagine how fucking weird that would be. And then we'll talk about The Thing. Before I do that, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Great scene. I don't know how they'd be cheaper. I don't know how they would be cheaper, but apparently they were at that time. The Thing is a remake of The Thing from Another World. And I think it's better than The Thing from Another World. Fantastically done. It's like a murder mystery with aliens wrapped up into one. It's so fucking good. And I love Kurt Russell in this movie. He's gorgeous. He's a fantastic actor, and he knew exactly what the fuck he was doing. I loved him in Guardians, too. Loved him as that guy in Guardians of the Galaxy as well. I just love Kurt Russell. I love Kurt Russell. And it's so cool that you don't notice a whole lot of things until you watch it more than once. You don't notice the things that are so obvious about, like, who is the alien. We don't want to talk about no, we don't want to talk about the remake. I'll say there was a remake, but we're not going to talk about that because it's bad. But it's one of those movies you watch over and over again because you'll see something different every time. And even after watching this movie multiple times, I still have no fucking clue if Kurt Russell's character or the other guy is the alien at the end. I have no idea, and I've seen people postulate about it over and over and over again in YouTube videos and debates. Nobody has any fucking clue exactly who's possessed by aliens and who is not, who's infected and who is not. Nobody knows. And the effects on this shit is amazing. Practical effects are the best. Fight me. I will take practical effects over CGI any day, even though it's more expensive. It still looks so much better when done right. Period. That's it. End of story. The next one I'm gonna have to watch, and I'll probably have to do a review on at some point, is The Hunger in 1983 by Tony Scott. I have to watch this because it has two of my favorite actors of all time, and one of the greatest artists, period, David motherfucking Bowie. Let me do it right. David motherfucking Bowie. And Susan Sarandon, who was seen in, of all things, one of my favorite musicals, Rocky Horror Picture Show, which we covered last time once again. Apparently Susan Sarandon in this movie, I've never seen it, I'm gonna have to, is a doctor that specializes in sleep and aging research. And she's drawn in by Bowie and Bowie's lover in this movie, to try and find ways to make them stay eternally youthful. Now, what's really interesting about this is that has a concept that I've never seen before, and that's that these vampires have eternal life, but they don't have eternal youth, and they're desperately looking for ways to stay youthful. That's something I've never. Halloween was talked about in the 1970s, Renegader. We talked about that last stream. But that's one of the most inventive takes on vampires that I've seen or even read about. So I'm gonna have to go look into this absolutely at some point very soon. The Hunger, once again, in 1983. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have off the top of my head for this one. But apparently it's a cult classic because of it's a cult classic and also an iconic LGBTQ movie because it has an open lesbian relationship in it, which isn't. I can understand that. There wasn't a whole. You would see a lot of scenes where guys were kind of. There's a little bit of tension with guys, and then there's a little bit of tension between girls, but there wasn't, like, full-blown love scenes from what I understood up until the 80s. This is also apparently going to be remade. It was, or at least as of 2021, this year, there's supposedly a remake in the works. I'm not sure exactly who's doing it, but, yeah. Another really good movie, and the next one we're going to go over, is Ghostbusters. I wouldn't necessarily say Ghostbusters is a horror, but I guess it's a supernatural comedy, so it kind of runs in the vein of horror. Obviously, we have a star-studded cast with this, with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, and Rick Moranis. Love all those actors. Fantastic casts. I loved 1 and 2. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with the new one, Afterlife, that's supposed to be coming out this year. Kind of interested to go see it. I probably will go see it just because, you know, that looks so fucking good. It looks more like the Ghostbusters. It's a really, really creepy Ghostbusters. I don't know if there's much I can say about Ghostbusters that hasn't already been said. I'm pretty much sure everybody knows the theme song for Ghostbusters. Everybody's seen this movie. Everybody knows who the fucking Marshmallow Man is. Amazing. Great, great movie. Hey, what's up, Alpha Russ? Welcome. Made a bizarre commercial about vodka. I have no idea. I don't know about anything about a bizarre vodka commercial. But there's Ghostbusters. And then we've got Gremlins. Oh my lord, I love Gremlins. It's spoopy time. Hey, Speedy Door. How you doing, my dude? But Gremlins is fantastic because it started the tiny monsters genre. I'm not super familiar with John Tron. I know of John Tron. I've seen some of his videos, but I'm not like a big. I haven't seen a whole lot of them, so I don't know Renegader. This is something that you clearly know about. I don't. But it's This one was directed by Joe Dante, and I love the fact that it turns this cute, cuddly little creature into something that's absolutely, like, the funniest, creepiest, off-the-wall creature. So funny. Don't feed it after midnight, guys. Don't feed it after midnight. But this was... And apparently it's a Christmas movie? The fuck? I don't know. It is one of those weird ones that's so fucking funny. There is a sequel that came out in 1990 that I'm not totally going to talk about because it's not nearly as good as the first one. But this spawned some of the funniest, like, dumb, like, little creature movies. Like, it jettisoned Critters, which I like. I like Critters. Never seen the Ghoulies. We've got Troll that came out of this. And then it devolved into Hobgoblins and Munchies, which are fucking dumb. It is so funny. I think Munchies is where I got that, that clip of the guy, the little, like, creature watching girls play mini golf and then losing his crap because they bent over in front of him. Like, it devolved so far into degeneracy and just ridiculousness that it's so fucking funny. After Gremlins, we have the other iconic, my favorite horror movie monster of the 80s. And welcome to Primetime, bitch. It's Freddy motherfucking Krueger with A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. Great cast. Great final girl. And the fact that it's one of Johnny Depp's first movies is pretty hysterical to me. Can't lie about that. And I've done a riff on Freddy with Psych. I did a version of Freddy cosplay in one of the pictures that I have had her commissioned for me, just because I love Freddy so much. And I love Robert Englund. He is a fucking artiste. He can go from doing Shakespearean shit to fucking Freddy Krueger, who is iconic beyond all icons, in my opinion. You can't talk about 80s horror movies without talking about Robert Englund and what he did with Freddy Krueger. And in the first one, in this one, he didn't even do much. He wasn't even that big in that movie. He didn't even come out too much. He was that fucking good. Hey Dee Dee Coleman, how you doing? Welcome. But I love this movie, and I love most of the movies that came after it. My favorite of the series is 3. I love Dream Warriors. I love it so much. But Welcome to Primetime, bitch, is still my favorite kill. There are some really cool ones, for sure, throughout the series, but Welcome to Primetime, bitch, is still the funniest and the best thing that I could think of in terms of Nightmare on Elm Street. Obviously, we eventually had a Freddy vs. Jason, but there were 6 sequels specifically from this, all of which had Robert Englund. I loved the 6th one. I love the one where you did... oh my god, what is it called? Where it's like real life, but Freddy kind of pokes his head into it a little bit. Like, you even see Robert Englund as himself. What's it called? Oh my god, I gotta go look at it. I gotta go look for this up. I gotta go look this up now. I'm losing it. Somebody... Unless somebody else knows it off the top of their head. But it's so good. I'm pretty sure somebody in the chat knows what I'm talking about. But what you probably didn't know about is that Freddy was so fucking influential that he has two derivatives in New Nightmare. Is it New Nightmares? I think it is New Nightmares. I think you might be right. But there were two derivatives of this in in Bollywood, which is in India's version of Hollywood. And there was also an Indonesian version of this. It's so fucking funny to me. He's that influential that Bollywood had to do it not once, but twice. I love it. I gotta go look into these. I'm so fucking stoked to look into those. But Freddy is amazing. I didn't like the remake in 2010 very much. I get where they were going, and they were starting to go with something good, but nobody can be Freddy but Robert Englund to me. Period. You can't. Actually, what Freddy was supposed to look like. Oh, really? Interesting. And then we'll go into one that's like a legitimate Christmas series of movies that are terrible from what I understand. But Silent Night, Deadly Night. Charles E. Sellier Jr. There's nothing weirder than homicidal Santa. Like, there's Krampus. Krampus is something completely different, but homicidal Santa? Like, come on. Okay. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Silent Night, Deadly Night. Even though I understand it's kind of funny. And it's probably one of the first full-blown takes of Christmas being terrifying. But, meh. Apparently there were 4 sequels to this. Again, declining in quality. It really is a trend with 80s horror movies that they have so many sequels that they end up being direct to video at some point. There was a remake in 2012, I think. Was that the one with Goldberg in it? Was the remake the one with Goldberg? No, I don't... No. No, it wasn't. Okay. I thought it was... And I know there is one that's Goldberg... Bill Goldberg is Santa. I don't remember what it was. Apparently, there's another remake in the works for 2021. Or was announced in 2021. Goldberg 1 was its own movie. I thought so, yeah. That's what I figured, but... Yeah, Goldberg was this homicidal Santa, though. That's why I got it confused. The next one we have is another huge Italian horror film with amazing Italian horror icons, Lamberto Bava and Dario Argento, Demons, or Demoni. This was released in 1985, and it's probably one of the funniest things that I've seen. If you listen to the actors who worked on it talk about their experience with this movie, so fucking funny. It's basically a movie theater is taken over by demons, and these people are trying to get out of this movie theater and trying to survive like zombies and snake monsters and demons just taking over this place. It's creepy and funny at the same time. It had 2 sequels to it. I don't know a whole lot about the sequels, but I've seen bits and pieces on the original Demoni, because I watch In Search of Darkness. If you've never seen In Search of Darkness 1 or 2, go find it. It's amazing. I will probably at one point like do viewings of them in my my Discord server, but they're 4 hours long, and it's 4 hours of fun. But I would look into it if you can. Another really good horror movie that I liked, and it's a great take on Dracula and Van Helsing, is Fright Night. Fright Night was released in 1985 as well, and It was directed by Tom Holland, who you'll see multiple times in this list when I'm talking about these movies. It basically details a teenager realizing that a vampire is his neighbor and trying to figure out how to fucking kill him. And in order to do that, he enlists the help of a bargain bin TV Van Helsing guy. He basically gets a hold of a guy who thinks he knows everything about vampires, and as soon as he actually runs into a real one, is like, what the fuck? It's such a good movie. It's so good. It spawned a sequel, and apparently, it's been remade in 2011, and apparently, that also got a sequel, and now it's gonna be, remade again, apparently. I don't know. This one, it's another one that's gotten a lot of traction over the years. The next, I've also done a wonderful rendition of this that Ziru did for me as a commission, and that's Reanimator. This is based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, also called Reanimator, where a scientist basically finds a serum to resurrect the dead and goes fucking insane. I love this movie. I love the stupid head-giving headline. It's so good. It's probably one of my favorites from this era because it gets very dark, and the fact that it's, based on an H.P. Lovecraft series, it's mind-boggling how good this original movie is. There were some sequels to it. I don't think I've seen the sequels. No, I haven't seen the sequels. I may have to go look at them at some point, but I don't know. There's also a musical adaptation of this, which I find hysterical. And I was interested to find out that this was good enough to have 3 crossover comics that were done by Devil's Due Publishing, 2 of which are crossovers with Army of Darkness, and 1 is with Vampirella. Wow. That was probably the most interesting thing that I'd found out about this particular movie. I didn't realize how influential it was. Like, I love Reanimator, don't get me wrong. I just didn't realize that it was so influential that they had references of it in fucking comic books with Vampirella and Army of Darkness. Like, come on, that's dope. I gotta go find that. Hey, what's up, Exotic? How you doing, my friend? But there's Reanimator for you. Yeah, there was an HBO Lovecraft series, wasn't there? I need to go find that and watch it. I probably really enjoy that. The next thing we've got is Return of the Living Dead, which is basically the first in the series of the Living Dead zombie franchise that wasn't involving George A. Romero. I mean, I love the original Return of the Living Dead. I so love it because of how comedic it is and how it plays with the intelligence of the zombies. Aw, you're very sweet, Exotic. My streams aren't that good, but I really appreciate it. I think one of my favorite lines from this is when a zombie gets a hold of a paramedic's... It's either a paramedic's or a cop's radio and says, "Send more cops." Or... because they want to eat more brains. It's so great. And this actually is the first place where the concept of zombies needing brains was introduced. And the reason that they need brains is that it relieves the pain of being Walking Dead. There's pain associated with being living dead. And that's something that's extremely, extremely new. That was inventive at that time. And everybody's run from it since then. This apparently had 5 sequels to it specifically. There were 5 Return to the Living Deads. All of which I'm assuming are varying quality. I've only kind of heard bits and pieces about the sequels through YouTube reviews, so I don't know a whole lot about them. I have seen the original one, and I love the original one. But regardless, it's a great movie. Absolutely go see it if you haven't seen this one. And I'd say it's probably one of the best of the Living Dead series, in my opinion, because of what it came out with and what the ideas and the inventive spins on zombies that it created. I'm not going to go too far into this one. We already discussed Alien in the last stream. Possible, Dee Dee. I think that could be one of the interpretations of that and could have been one of the reasons why they went about using that, but I don't know for sure. You could be correct, though. But Aliens came out in 1986 and is the successor of Alien, where they brought back Sigourney Weaver, who's... Fuck, anybody who says anything about who's the biggest badass in horror films, that I'm gonna say Sigourney Weaver. Period. You can't tell me otherwise. Ellen Ripley is just fucking badass. This is the sequel. I'm not gonna say a whole lot because there isn't too much about the series that I didn't already say last stream, but it's fantastic. I love the Aliens series and the franchise. Yes, it is. It is absolutely horror. It is absolutely a horror movie, Eric. The next movie is a movie called House. I don't know a whole lot about it. It's apparently a comedy horror with a sequel that came out the next year. It's technically a horror series regardless, Eric. I would say that, yeah, it may be more action-y than Alien, but it's still technically a horror movie, and the Xenomorphs are absolutely a horror movie monster, regardless of how you spin it. I haven't seen House, but I've heard it's really funny through In Search of Darkness. Again, this one's a comedy horror, but basically it's about the main character who's an overpressured writer that basically goes and lives in his aunt's house after she dies and realizes that the house is extremely haunted and is filled with monsters and ghosts galore. Once again, I don't know a whole lot about it because I haven't seen it. But it's very good from what I understand from In Search of Darkness. A lot of what I know about 80s horror is from In Search of Darkness. I haven't seen too many of all of these guys. But after that, we have Evil Dead 2. And oh my god, is Evil Dead 2 amazing. I think it's the only, one that was brought, I'm going to bring up that's a sequel from another one that I've already talked about today. But Evil Dead 2 is amazing because it mixes the comedy and horror aspects. If you looked at Evil Dead 1, it wasn't as much of a comedy, it was more straightforward, but Evil Dead 2 is a retelling of that story in Evil Dead 1 with more of that horror, that comedy infused into the horror in it. And it's got, obviously, it had more money to it, so it wasn't an independent film like the first one was, so it had a lot better effects. And I like how Ash is portrayed by Bruce Campbell in this one more than I do the first one. He's more of a fleshed out badass than in Evil Dead 1. Hey, what's up, Nox? Welcome back. Now that I've kind of gushed, I could go on all day about Evil Dead 2 and Ash versus Evil Dead and everything that has to do with that, but I'm gonna move on. Because we still have to go through the 90s, and we are not done. We're only a little bit over halfway done with... No, we're almost done with this, but I want to keep pushing. The next one is Fatal Attraction in 1987, which had Michael Douglas, Glenn Close, and Ann Archer. I fucking love Glenn Close in this. It's amazing to see something that's more of a psychological thriller scare the living shit out of you and make your skin crawl. The way Glenn Close plays the psychotic lover is just fantastic. She deserves every accolade she's ever gotten because she's amazing at scaring the shit out of you. She is literally the reason why I cannot watch live action 101 and 102 Dalmatian movies. I can't. She scares the shit out of me as Cruella de Vil to this day. She scared the living crap out of me as a kid. She still scares the living crap out of me now. And her in Fatal Attraction, c'est magnifique. Even better is that there's apparently going to be a remake of Paramount Plus. I don't know how well that's going to go. I don't know how anybody can top Glenn Close and Michael Douglas in this movie because the way they portray a toxic affair is... Woo! I don't know how you can go and do that again, but apparently there is a remake that's planned for Paramount Plus. Don't know. I'll probably look into it, but that movie's fantastic. Another one that's being remade that I don't think should be touched is The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is a time capsule of the 80s. It is absolutely a product of its time, and I don't have any fucking clue how they're gonna remake it for 2021 and modernize this. I have no idea, because it only worked because it was an 80s film, in my opinion. I'm not the only one that thinks that either. I'm not the only one that thinks that it shouldn't be touched. I know many, many YouTubers and many friends who think that that's fucking dumb to go and touch this again. But The Lost Boys is amazing. Yes, and better than Twilight, I agree. It's a fantastic way of portraying how everybody doesn't want to grow up and necessarily. And as a kid, you want to stay young forever, but you can't. I'm a victim of this. I know a lot of people who are a victim of this who wish they could go back to a time where everything wasn't so dark. Unfortunately, those vampires, the monsters knocking at your door is fucking life and you gotta deal with it. You just gotta deal with it. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes underneath the main plot of this, but I'm not gonna get too much into it. I can go over this all day, but there are people that have done it better than me, and I'll leave it up to them to talk about that movie. The next is Near Dark, in 1987 by Catherine Bigelow. This is another kind of vampire horror movie, and I think it was the predecessor to 30 Days of Night, because it basically is a young man ends up getting caught up in a nomadic vampire cult and gets stuck in it and is trying to survive and get out of this cult and get out of there and get away. It also has something that's pretty interesting that I've never heard of before, and that's reversing the transformation into a vampire. There's a scene in this movie where a blood transfusion is given to the main character to stop him from transforming into a vampire, which I've never heard of before. And apparently this is extremely dark, even if it was... It's another cult classic. I'll have to go look at it. I've heard it's really good. I just haven't had the chance to watch it. Like I said, there's so many really good horror movies that I have to watch, and I'm hoping to do so very soon. This is one of them. After that, we're going to talk about Predator, which is another extremely popular, technically horror film. Science fiction action, but they technically consider it a horror film for some reason. We are introduced to another alien monster called the Predator. And obviously this is really well known for being an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, with plenty of sequels to its name, and 2 crossover films with Alien. A shit ton of crossover games with Alien. I think it's really cool seeing, you know, it be some sort of like survival horror where these military veterans are trying to fucking murder this ace assassin alien from another place. It's man versus what the unknown in some way. JoJo's not in this, buddy. Exotic, stop putting things in here that don't belong. Stop putting things in my stuff that don't belong, okay? Okay? Okay. I'm not gonna go too deep into Predator because I don't totally consider it a horror film. I consider it an action. So I'm pretty sure everybody knows what Predator is. I'm pretty sure I don't need to go over it too much. And we'll go to the next one, which I really want to talk about, and that's
We have such sights to show you.
Pinhead and Hellraiser. Holy shit. I love this series. Holy shit. I love Pinhead. And I love how absolutely fucked up this series is. It is so fucked up. The Cenobites are terrifying. And I love Doug Bradley as Pinhead. Doug Bradley is a goddamn master. Pinhead is probably one of my favorites. I would say I like him better than I like Jason. I would say he's secondary to Freddy. That's my opinion. I just love the idea of the like really masochistic, I'm gonna punish you for being a terrible human being, and I'm gonna enjoy it, and I'm gonna show you just how deeply depraved human beings are. I can't say anything better than that. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this new series where they make Pinhead a woman. I don't think anybody can play Pinhead like Doug Bradley did. I wasn't a fan of the newer Pinhead the new Hellraiser movies. I'm not a fan of the new Pinhead. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this new, especially since Clive Barker is gone. And we lost Wes Craven, which really sucks too, but I don't know how I'm gonna feel about any of that. I really don't. We'll see. We'll see. Skeptical. We've got Child's Play. Chucky. Gotta love Chucky. Funny as hell. I would say that Bride of Chucky is my favorite of the series. I'm weird like that. But Chucky came out in 1988 and was directed by Tom Holland, which we've seen before. I absolutely love I absolutely love Chucky as a character. He's fucking hysterical. He's just gutturally bad. Very sexualized, very provocative, I will say. And I enjoy Child's Play for what it is. I haven't seen anything about I haven't seen any episodes of the new TV series that's come out. I'm very aware that my beloved Mark Hamill plays Chucky in the remake, But I've heard not very good things about the remake for Child's Play, so we're talking about movies, not Exotic. We're talking about movies. We're not talking about manga or anime. This is cinema. This is not. You literally love doing this, don't you? Stop the reeling things. Stop it. The next, the third to last I'll talk about is Night of the Demons. I think this is a really hysterical, like, offshoot, in my opinion. I don't like the remake. I like this one a lot better, where a bunch of teenagers decide they're gonna have a fun little night at a whole house party at a mortuary. And they end up summoning demons and being possessed by them. It's so fucking good. It's so fucking funny, in my opinion. I'm not gonna go too deep into it. But it's great. It's really well done. And you kind of cackle at how some people do stupid shit and they find out. There's a Dutch movie that came out in 1988 called The Vanishing that I'm not very familiar with. It was directed by George Sluizer. And, I don't know a whole lot about it, but apparently it's about a couple that go on a trip to France, and, one of the female of the couple is abducted and goes missing, and we watch the male, the other end of the couple, trying to find her and finding that some other man, who was looking to abduct a woman and kill her, go ahead, grab her at this rest stop they stop at, because their car breaks down for some reason. I don't know a whole lot about this. I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but apparently it's one of those bigger films in this time period. Last one for the 1980s is Pet Sematary. I do very much enjoy Pet Sematary. I think it's really fucking creepy. I enjoy this one more than I do the remake that came out in 2019. The one thing that I do like about the remake is that they decided to gender swap the kid that dies, and haunts them, but Pet Sematary is basically, this family moves to a new home. They find this pet cemetery, that has apparently got this kind of supernatural properties, where you can bury a pet there and the pet will come back to life. They find this out by doing it with a pet cat. And then one of the children die, the son, I think, in the original, dies. They bury the son in the graveyard, and the son comes back to life and is this terror of a character. Just terrorizes his family and starts attacking people like a goddamn demon. It's fucking insane. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's really scary. I enjoy it a lot, though. And with that, we're gonna go moving into the 1990s. The first one is also released by Disney, apparently. It's called Arachnophobia, by Frank Marshall. Arachnophobia, obviously, it's spiders, but an entomologist basically finds this new species of spider in the forests of Venezuela, and brings it back with him, only to find that, yeah, this is a very venomous and deadly species of spiders, and his teammates are being bitten and murdered, and before he knows it, one of the female spiders creates a nest with hundreds of these little fuckers coming out and attacking people. Holy shit. That kind of, just imagining that, I would freak out. I hate spiders. I won't kill them if they're, like, hiding, but if they come out in my house and I see them in my house, they die. You come out, you die, because you're stupid. If you hide, you live. That's just how it works in my house. Ew, yeah. The next movie I'll talk about is, I wouldn't say that it's a horror movie, but apparently it technically is considered a thriller, and that's Ghost with Demi Moore Whoopi Goldberg, Tony Goldwyn, and the man of my dreams, Patrick Swayze. I love Patrick Swayze. Fuck anybody who says otherwise. He is amazing. May he rest in peace. He is gorgeous. And I love him in this movie. I'm not going to go too into it because I don't really consider it a horror movie. But it's basically Patrick Swayze dies and is murdered. And he comes back to try and solve the murder with his girlfriend, the lover, Demi Moore, and goes to 9 times out of 10, yeah. But yeah, it's basically the explanation of them figuring out who killed Patrick Swayze's character and getting revenge on them for what was done. Great movie. Amazing music in it. I love me some Unchained Melody. And that pot scene, ooh, steamy. Love it. The next movie we'll talk about is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer by John Monotton, or directed by John Monotton. Hey, what's up, Given Ant? Was parodied in Family Guy. Yes, it was. Too scared to kill them. They own the room I see them in. Yeesh. I usually use like a vacuum or some sort of like deadly like spray. Hey, what's up, Billy Bob Boomer? Love Crazy Swayze. Yeah, Swayze is great. I love him. I love him in Dirty Dancing. I love him in Ghost. I love him in everything that he's in. But the next movie we're talking about is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I haven't seen this one, but apparently it's based on the actual serial killer, Henry Lee Lucas. And it's kind of like a documentary-style movie that follows the killing spree of a fictional serial killer called Henry. I haven't seen this. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I do actually have to go and see it. It apparently initially was so graphic that it was rated X by the MPAA. I'm gonna have to watch this at some point. I've heard nothing but good things. I'm not gonna go too much further into it because I don't know a whole lot about it. But again, I'm gonna have to go watch it. The next movie I do know a lot about, and I love. It's got another one of my favorite actors in it, and that would be Kathy fucking Bates in Misery. Misery is so fucked. I, to this day, still cringe just thinking about the block scene where she just jackhammers the shit out of James Caan's ankles. Oh my god, dude. That is a scene for the books. And Kathy Bates just continues to make good work. Obviously, to this day, she's still working with... Or, I don't know about to this day, because I haven't seen the last two seasons of American Horror Story, but she was in a lot of the American Horror Story seasons and did amazing character work in those. But Misery is an adaptation of a Stephen King novel. I think he actually liked this one, if I'm not mistaken. But this is such a good movie. It's such a good psychological thriller. It can't be beat. I hope nobody ever touches it again, and if they ever do, I will lose my goddamn mind, because it's too good to be done again. Nobody can top Kathy Bates in this. Another fantastic movie that's after this, that came out in 1991, is The Silence of the Lambs. Goodbye, horses. Na, 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 na. Come on, that scene is the best. That scene is so fucking funny with Buffalo Bill dancing her own scene. Would you do me? I'd do me. I know it's would you fuck me? I'd fuck me, but I'm saying the do me part instead. I guess that didn't make any sense. Whatever. I'm having too good of a time. But Silence of the Lambs is actually the second book in a trilogy of horror novels by Ted Talley. No, sorry. Thomas Harris is the guy who wrote it. I'm I'm all over the place now. My brain hurts. Yes, more THS singing. I'm a musical buff. I'm a musician at heart. Yes, you're gonna see that a lot. Get used to it. But Silence of the Lamb is so fantastic. The cast is so great. Jodie Foster as Clarice is so good. Obviously, Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter is untoppable. And probably one of the roles that really made me love him the most. And I love Buffalo Bill in this. And this jettisoned so many films. Oh my god. It's probably one of the weirdest psychological horror I've ever encountered, and I can't get enough of it. I can't sing its praises any more than I already do. The next one is Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I fucking love. I love it so much. It's such a good movie. It's basically the penultimate vampire movie in a lot of people's belief, and I can agree with that because it's really good and it's very iconic. It's my favorite adaptation of the book. That's my opinion. Not my favorite Dracula. Obviously, my favorite Dracula is Christopher Lee, but you know, we won't go too into it. We've already gone over the Dracula part, but this is like the precursor of Interview with a Vampire, which we'll go over as well. And it's very good. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Period. The next movie, which was actually remade this year, I don't really care to go watch it. I don't care to watch the remake, but Candyman by Bernard Rose in 1992, which is based on an urban legend of a character called the Candyman. It's kind of like Bloody Mary, where, you know, talking to the mirror and saying somebody's name multiple times has them appear and kill you. Yeah, that's Candyman. I absolutely love the portrayal of Candyman in this. And apparently, dude was just so smart. Tony Todd was so smart. When they used live bees, he says, okay, you're gonna give me $1,000 for every time I get stung by a bee. He got stung 36 times. He made 36 grand on top of actually doing this movie. Because he got stung so many times. Who can make the sun rise? Nice. And the scene of him just, like, opening his mouth and bees just coming out is fucking horrifying. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that, period. Apparently there were 2 sequels made after this. I don't know anything about them. I don't really care to go see the remake that came out this year. I don't have much else to say about that. The original Candyman is great. I'll go with that, yeah. Next movie is Dead Alive by Peter Jackson. It's also known as Brain Dead. This was initially put out in New Zealand and was renamed and remade for American audiences. It's basically about a team of explorers that smuggle a Sumatran rat monkey, which is like a hybrid weird, it was like a hybrid kind of, obviously with like a rat and a monkey, but apparently it has some serious issues with it because that monkey starts biting people and turning them into zombies. And it just gets really fucking wacky after that. I've never seen this movie, so I don't know a whole lot about it, like with some of these other movies, but I'll have to take a look into it because I really like the picture that's associated with it. It's really kind of creepy looking. The next one we'll talk about is a Guillermo del Toro movie called Kronos, which is another weird take on vampires. This one basically has an antique dealer that finds an old mechanical object inside of an archangel statue. And when he turns the mechanical knob that's on the inside of it and activates the thing, a bug comes out of it, and it injects him with this serum that basically turns him into a vampire. The entire movie is basically spent with this dealer trying to keep people away from his precious, his device, and this serum that he has, and realizing that he's not human because he can't go outside into the sunlight. It's an interesting, from what I understand, take on vampires again, and that's part of the things that I really love about the 90s, is they do some really interesting takes on vampires, and there's a new lore that comes out about vampires in general that I just particularly enjoy. Next movie is Jurassic Park. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it. Everybody knows what Jurassic Park is. I don't necessarily consider it a horror movie, but it's probably one of the most iconic franchises in movie cinema, period, by Steven Spielberg. Obviously, it's got 5 sequels to it. It's been kind of remade, done and done again many, many times over. The original has Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum in it. I enjoy this movie. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that do enjoy this movie. It's very well done. But I'm not going to talk about it too much because I don't really consider it a horror movie. But one of my favorite horror movie franchises came out in the 90s, and that's Leprechaun. I make jokes constantly about Leprechaun. I love Warwick Davis as Leprechaun. None of the movies that don't have him in it are the same. He's fucking hysterical. It's like the iconic "You're After Me, Lucky Charms" character, and I love the fuck out of it. It's basically, most of these are a leprechaun is going after a family of people, or going after a bunch of people because they've stolen his gold coins, and leprechauns are notoriously greedy. You don't touch their shit or they won't fuck you up. And some of the deaths that come in this series is great. This is also one of the bigger... This is also kind of considered the movie that jettisoned Jennifer Aniston into the limelight. Leprechaun... I'm not going to talk about Leprechaun in the Hood very much because that's a blight on everything that is holy when it comes to Leprechaun. But I love the Leprechaun. I love to make jokes about him on Twitter when people say that I'm short. Yes, I'm short. I'm 5'1". I'm a leprechaun. I'm a Keebler elf. Leave me alone, or I'm gonna fucking get you. I'm just kidding. I won't actually do anything to anybody. I'm harmless. There's 5 sequels to this. It was rebooted by WWE of all fucking companies, and WWE so far has made 3 movies, all of which are fucking bad. They are so horrendously bad. It's like peeing on everything that Warwick Davis ever did for horror cinema. After that, probably one of my favorite movies of all time, Interview with a Vampire. It's got the most star-studded cast with Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas, Kirsten Dunst. This movie is so good. I've watched it over and over and over again, and I'm a fan of this kind of vampire. The Anne Rice vampires are my favorites. I'm removing that exotic because I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that drama stuff in my chats. I don't want it to attract any of that kind of attention. I get it's funny, but let's not do that. Let's not do that here. I also, apparently, they've missed a Anne Rice adaptation movie that I have to go watch now because I must. But this movie, I've heard a lot of people say that it's boring. I've heard a lot of people say a lot of dumb shit about it. And I just disagree. I just disagree because I think it's so beautifully done. I cry every time when we see Louis trying to save Claudia from her demise. Oh my god, fucking I gotta stop before I start getting emotional. No, Team Armand, thank you very much. Armand is the name of the character that Antonio Banderas plays, and Antonio Banderas is Bae. So yeah, Team Armand. I'm not gonna go too much further into that. We have got to move on. I'm on time crunch. I knew this was gonna happen, so I'm gonna keep going. There's another movie that came out called Wolf that had Jack Nicklaus in it and Michelle Pfeiffer. I've never seen it. I don't know a whole lot about it. Apparently, it's not very. It's panned critically, or not panned. It's I don't know how they say that, like, it's not a good. It wasn't a good movie, or a lot of people didn't like it. But that's what I'm hearing from my research and what I've heard about the movie from reviews. But it's basically Jack Nicholson is turned into a werewolf and then realizes that the company he works for is being taken over by a gang of werewolves. That's what I understand of it. I love Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson, though, so I may have to watch it at some point. We'll see. We'll see. The next movie I'll talk about is Seven. Holy shit. Seven is such a good fucking movie, and it's so fucking terrifying when you think about it. Seven stars Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow, and John C. McGinley. Hey, what's up, Yarded? It's basically two detectives are trying to investigate a string of murders that's based upon the 7 deadly sins. And holy shit. I'm not gonna go too far into these crime scenes and these deaths, but they are absolutely some of the most fucked up and mental killings I've ever seen in horror cinema, period. And it's probably one of the funniest lines to me of, "What's in the box? What's in the box?" Like, everybody knows that fucking line. Exactly, Billy Bob Boomer. What's in the box? And with retrospect, looking back on it, I kind of laugh at the ending and what happens to Gwyneth Paltrow. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it. Go fucking see it. It's an amazing movie. It's so fucking good, and I love how Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman play off of each other. Go watch it. It's so mentally fucked up, but I love it. The next movie that we have is From Dusk Till Dawn, and it's a Robert Rodriguez movie, but come on, it's a fucking Quentin Tarantino movie that stars Quentin Tarantino in it. It's like, it I don't know how this movie goes from dudes running from the law to finding a fucking vampire coven. It is so, at a bar of all places, it is so funny how it just whips around on you. It's like an M. Night Shyamalan twist kind of shit going on. It's so fucking funny. I get a kick out of that shit. I get a kick out of this movie every time I see it, and especially with how George Clooney plays things so, like, straight. It's so fucking weird. Maybe Dev End? I don't know if it launched her career or not, but I know she's in it, and I know she's known for being in it. Could be. But it's a funny movie, in my opinion. I don't think it's really scary. I think it's really funny and more in my opinion. And now we're gonna talk about a very good way people addressed the slasher genre of the 80s, and that is through, you guessed it, Scream. Scream is an amazing movie series, and I love the first one the most. The first one's my favorite, just because I like how it takes the piss out of the slasher movie genre. It's a parody of that, while also being fucking scary at the same time. And it's interesting that we're talking about this because we're getting another one. After how many years, we're getting another Scream movie. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what they do with it. This is going to be interesting. Is it going to be very interesting to see? Yeah, Scream 5. After how many years? Like, decades? It's been like 2 decades since the last one came out. And we're going to get another one. I'm pretty excited to see how that goes. After this, we're going to talk about another film. And that's Funny Games. Funny Games is very fucked up. It's a psychological thriller where these 2 guys go into a family's home and basically start torturing the living shit out of them. It is very fucked up. It was initially done in Australia and then remade in America sometime later. But the original is, oh boy, it makes you sick to your stomach watching. It's one of those, if you really like those kind of movies, the psychological thrillers, I would highly suggest watching. So if you haven't seen it, go do that. Hold on. Okay. Last thing I gotta do over here, and then after Funny Games, we've got another one that's very similar to Scream. In a way, it's a take on the slasher genre, and that's I Know What You Did Last Summer. This one doesn't get as much love as Scream does, but I still think it's a good movie. It stars Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe, Freddie Prinze Jr., John Galecki, Bridget Wilson. It's a great cast, and it's, I think, very similar to Prom Night in that it's about a group of friends that are involved in the death of a pedestrian. They hit somebody with their car, and that person dies. And they try to hide that it was an accident. They run away from the scene, but somebody else saw what happened. And that particular somebody ends up becoming a hook-wielding serial killer that goes after them and tries to kill them. Yeah, Nox, it's based off of a book. It is based off of a novel of the same name by Louis Duncan. There are 2 movies that are after this that I've heard that are still pretty decent. I haven't seen them, but there's that. We'll do a little quick overview of Blade, which is the next one on the list. Blade is a Stephen Norrington directed movie that's based upon a Marvel Comics superhero of the same name that is a half vampire. I think this is the first time we see some sort of half vampire come into the movies cinema, or it's the first instance from what I understand, of the half vampires in vampire culture and lore. I like that. I like the half vampire trope. I'm okay with that. The first one and the second one are amazing. Love it. It's got 2 sequels, the last of which having Triple H in it, and it's really fucking bad. It's really fucking bad. It was adapted into a television series for a short time, and there is, yes, a reboot that's in the mix, Nox. And from what I understand, Wesley Snipes has some sort of involvement in it. I don't know for sure, but yeah, more vampires. It's just how a lot of horror cinema is in the 90s. The next one is a Denzel Washington movie, directed by Gregory Hoblit, called Fallen in 1988. This one I think is really similar to Seven, because it's the supernatural thriller, psychological thriller kind of thing, where detectives are investigating a string of murders, except in this case, this is a copycat string of murders, because the detectives involved in this one caught the original serial killer called Edgar Reese and were a part of putting him on death row. And now they're trying to investigate these murders and figure out, okay, well, who the hell is doing this and why? It seems like a good movie. I probably will have to go watch it. If it's anything like Seven, I'm gonna have to go watch it. But this is the first time I've heard of this one, and I'm really interested to look into it. And now we start the beautiful, wonderful Japanese horror genre trend with Ringu, or The Ring. Everybody has heard of The Ring. Whether you've seen the original Ringu or the American adaptation in the 2000s, it is a phenomenal series of movies. More so the original Japanese one is, I think, is scarier and better than the ones that are made in America. About a cursed tape that if you view it 7 days later, you will die. This is the iconic movie in which you watch a girl crawl out of a well and then crawl towards a person and then out of the TV to kill the person. Love this movie. Love everything that has to do with it. And apparently it was much more popular in Japan than it was here in America, because in Japan there are 5 sequels. There are 2 that are actual, like, Ring sequels, which is Ring 2 and Ring Zero Birthday, which is technically a prequel. And then they have a completely different series that came out that started in 2019, which was Sadako, which jettisoned 2 other movies, Sadako 3D and Sadako 3D 2. Really cool. I'll have to look into those other ones, but I know definitely the original Ring is fan-fucking-tastic. The next movie we're going to go over is called Urban Legend. This is very interesting, because what it does is it's kind of anthology and kind of not. What it does is it takes the story of these serial killings at an English university and has them in the spin of different urban legends. Like, some of the different ones that are there is Bloody Mary, Pop Rocks and Soda dying. There's let me put it a little bit differently. There's the urban legend of Bloody Mary. There's the urban legend of having Pop Rocks and Soda consumed at the same time, killing you. There's driving with your headlights off. There's people hanging themselves from trees due to certain other things. There's the serial killer kidney heist kind of thing, where you get into some trouble and they steal your kidneys for the black market. It's just a whirlwind of fucking weird, and it's pretty good from what I've seen in reviews. But basically the storyline is that there's a series of serial killings based on urban legends at this particular university, and all of it spurns from a particular incident or murder that happened to another student. Very good concept. I haven't seen it myself, but it sounds like fucking amazing. And there are 2 sequels that came after this, one of which was direct to video, which means it sucked. We've got another really, really disturbing and really good Japanese horror movie with Audition in 1999 by Takashi Miike. It's based on a 1997 novel by Ryu Murakami, which is basically the story of a widower setting up these phony auditions in order to meet a new partner after his wife dies. His son suggests that he does this, and he does. He interviews a few girls, and then he meets this one that he starts kind of getting an interest in, and then finds out she's an absolute psychopath. Towards the halfway part of the movie, it goes from being that to torture porn, and I can't even watch all the way through it because it just bothers me so much. I may have to try it and watch it all the way through, but it's, by all accounts, it fucks you up. It's a good movie, but it fucks you up heavily. It really does. I've got 4 more movies to talk about. One of which I'm not really going to talk about too much, because well, 2 of them I'm not going to talk about too much, because but probably the biggest one on this list, in my opinion, and probably most influential in the long run, is the Blair Witch Project that came out in 1999. Exotic, it's very unsettling the way it's done. It's done in a way that maybe not necessarily the worst kind of torture you've ever seen happen, but it's, the way it's done will make you want to vomit. Or at least it made me want to vomit when I watched it, and a lot of other people have said that they had the same reaction because it's just so unsettling. But back to Blair Witch Project. Blair Witch Project is the pan-ultimate found footage movie. Horror movie, specifically. And the people who did this were so damn smart that they took advantage of the blooming internet culture and made people believe that this was real, utilizing internet websites that kind of led you to believe that it was real. I love this movie because it leaves you so open-ended, and it has so many, I guess you could say, theories to it, and that's explain what exactly is happening, what happens at the end. Are the friends actually possessed, or did they set this all up? But just to go over exactly what this is about, it's basically a group of friends that go out into the forest to investigate an urban legend of someone called the Blair Witch. And they go out into the forest and just start losing their minds over what they're seeing. It's debated whether or not what they're seeing or what's occurring is real, or if it's the friends making it up to go after the female in the group to murder her. I don't know for sure. That's just woo. The fact that that's still debated and it's not definitive whether or not that's what exactly is happening is what's part of what's amazing about this movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I don't give a flying fuck about the sequel. It's apparently supposed to be getting remade, or was remade. I don't know. I've played the Blair Witch Project game and I loved it. Freaks me the fuck out. I think I did it on Twitch, so I mean, if you want to go on my Twitch channel and watch that, you can. I think it's still there. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot more to say about the Blair Witch Project, other than it's fucking amazing, and is an innovator of its time. The next movie is The Mummy. I'm not gonna talk about this much. It's supposed to be a remake of the older films in the 1950s and 60s. I love it. I love this movie. I love the Mummy franchise. I do. But I'm not going to really talk too much about it because it's not really a horror film in my opinion. It's a really good movie. A really good movie, but it's not a horror film in my opinion. Time to remake. Yeah, I'm creatively bankrupt. Time to remake old movies. Yeah. I mean, I think this Mummy film is a good remake or a good interpretation of the older movies, but It's a rare good interpretation. Period. The last one I'm going to talk about in detail is The Sixth Sense by M. Night Shyamalan, and came out in 1999 as well. I love this movie. I love what Bruce Willis does in this movie, and I am freaked out by this to this day. I love the fact that unless you've seen it before, you don't understand what exactly is going on until you've gotten to the end. And once you've gotten to the end, you want to rewatch it again because things start to pop out to you that you didn't notice before. Yes, I see dead people. I see dead people. Very, very good acting by Haley Joel Osment and Bruce Willis in this movie. I don't want to spoil the ending if you or the fun behind it, but if you haven't seen it, go fucking see it. It's an amazing movie. It's probably one of the only good movies that M. Night Shyamalan has put out, in my opinion. It's one of those, the only ones where the what a twist actually works. The twist in this actually fucking works. It makes sense. But if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's amazing. I enjoyed it. And the last movie I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about it too much, is Sleepy Hollow. That was done by Tim Burton. Obviously, it's got Johnny Depp in it, because Johnny Depp and Tim Burton always love working together. So, obviously, he's going to be in that movie. He's been in so many of his movies, it's fucking ridiculous, but whatever. This is a take on the Headless Horseman Sleepy Hollow story that we've seen so many times over and over again. I haven't seen it personally. I've heard it's good, but I'm not gonna talk about it too much. And that's pretty much the last movie that I have on my list for the 90s. Hopefully I didn't miss a whole lot regarding these two eras. There's a lot to go through and not a lot of time to do it. So next weekend I'll finish everything out with the 2000s, 2010s, and kind of the 20s since we've only got 2 years into it. I'll do that next weekend. I don't know if anybody is interested in coming in and doing that with me, but I will be more than happy to have somebody on. I will be working on finishing the script for the Creepypasta Iceberg Level 4 and getting that out by next weekend. That's a hard deadline. It has to happen. I'm not gonna, miss that